Hi, everyone. Welcome to another interview for the North American Systemic Constellations Conference, which is scheduled to be held in Colorado Springs this November. And I'm Jim Shine, the program chair, and my guest today is Joe Nunziata, who's not a constellator, but he's a visiting dignitary from other energy work fields. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Okay. So I guess to start off with, we talked a little bit before I started recording about, your background, and I was wondering if you could tell the listeners just a little bit about, your career, if you want to call it calling, whatever, and how it developed and how it led you to be speaking at our conference.
Great. So I'll give you the short version because I believe in brevity. So I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. My dad was a detective, a narcotics detective, who passed on the job when I was 12 years old. So obviously a traumatic event early on, a karmic event as I look at it now. Went out to work right after high school. We had some financial problems, and I went out to literally graduated high school on a Friday, and Monday I was working full time. I started off actually delivering beer on a truck, and then ended up working with a soda. I bought a soda delivery truck, and I would go out every day, and that was actually my introduction into business and sales. Did that for a while, ended up going through a bankruptcy when I was about 20 with the truck. That didn't work out well. I moved into New York City and started to bartend. So did that for a number of years, ended up managing a nightclub. And during that period of time, I didn't realize, I always make a joke for people. I said, I didn't realize that the bartending was starting my sales career. So I went from there and decided to get a real job, as they say, and got into sales. Started selling advertising space in a newspaper, and I didn't realize that my bartending skills were so translatable into sales, because as a bartender, I'm talking to strangers, building rapport to get a better tip. As a salesperson, I'm talking to strangers, building rapport so they'll buy from me. And just kind of went through a career of worked in advertising, worked in a lot of different fields, have been, worked my way through the corporate world, was sales manager, sales director, sales trainer, which I've always been doing training work. Ended up being a VP of sales. In between that time period, I had started a secondary business, which was a direct mail marketing business, which I went through a second bankruptcy when I was 30. So what really happened was, in between the two bankruptcies, I kind of got to a point where I was really very up and down. I would have these amazing periods where I was doing really well, and then I would kind of crash and burn in between. And I just couldn't figure it out, because I was doing all the stuff that people tell me I'm supposed to do. So I'm out there and I'm working hard and I'm setting goals. And I was the kid, even as a young kid, I'm reading books and I'm going to seminars and I'm listening to tapes. I'm going to date myself, Jim, and say tapes, that no one knows what that is. I go to colleges sometimes and they say, tapes, what are those? So that kind of, and at one point somebody said, you went through this trauma, you should go to therapy. This was, and again, back at that time, I'm Italian from Brooklyn. This was not exactly a Sunday dinner conversation. Let's go to therapy. So I started with therapy and really got into it and really found it fascinating and started studying behavior. My therapist gave me a bunch of books. I took some courses and started to learn about, human behavior and what's going on and why I'm having these ups and downs. And that kind of led me into the metaphysical world, and then started learning about meditation and metaphysical energy principles and the chakra system. And I ended up at one point meeting an enlightened master spiritual teacher who taught me the whole chakra system and how to clear energy out of the chakra system. So I was doing all this stuff really for myself. I wasn't thinking about it, integrating this across. And after a while I said, wait a minute, these are universal principles. These are energy principles. We're all people. We're all emotional. Why can't I just blend these two things together? I had such a deep understanding and background in business and sales. So I started to do that little by little. I started implementing it as I was running these different businesses and so forth. I started kind of implementing this into my sales training with my people, and they loved it. They were just like, they just loved that it was like a little different thing that kind of took them to a higher level. Ended up getting a call from a publisher to write spiritual selling. And so that's kind of how it happened. And I've been doing it ever since. I also do work with karma with people, and I do energy healing as an aside. So I kind of do all those different things. But I do really love bringing these principles, because I think we need it so desperately into the business world, because I think we've gotten so caught up in the numbers and the stock price or whatever. Instead of saying we've dehumanized it to a point that it's something that should not happen. these things are interconnected. We're about helping each other. And I think we need to bring that in. I think nowadays, more and more, we're going to see that happen.
Yeah, great. Yeah, no, so this is, you came from a business perspective and went more of little,
Yeah.
Energy or spiritual, whatever you want to call it. So you're perfect ambassador for a lot of the people here, like myself, who, I had a first career too, but, this work has always been kind of spiritual for me, but how do you connect it with the business world? So this is great. Well, you're going to be doing a keynote on spiritual selling, how to use the attractor sales system to create success in your business and life. So along the same lines, you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about, really getting past what we have, obviously in our brains and the way we operate is a lot of people, the minute I say the word selling to them, they kind of cringe because they don't want to think they're selling something. And actually my philosophy is when I teach people, I always say you should never think you're selling something because it puts you into a different energetic state. So what I want to talk about that in that keynote is really just talking about how to move yourself into a different place and then understand how to emotionally move forward. Now, the other part of it is we are still living in a physical, third dimensional, transaction-based world. So you do have to know how to go through that process and secure that sale. So I work with a lot of people who are, I speak at a lot of these events that are more spiritually based. And a lot of times they'll bring me in for this. And I meet all these amazing people like we have in this group that we're going to have there who are struggling because they can't kind of get to the business part. And they just struggle with that whole making that a smooth process. And how are they going to collect their money? And how are they going to, set that up and show people their process and how they get paid? And so this is important that we do it in a way that it doesn't have to be salesy, but we are still living in this world. So we have to be able to function effectively. And that's how you're going to be more successful. And the bottom line is the more successful you are, the more people you can help. So it's really learning how to almost seamlessly, Joe Vitale, you probably know from The Secret, is a guy I know. And, we talked about this when the book was coming out. And he said, I like the way you kind of seamlessly did this. And I think that's really the goal for that presentation.
Great. So then you're also doing a 2-hour workshop in the regular program called Heal the Deal, and you had an old book, Spiritual Selling, and then a new book, Heal the Deal. Am I correct, or am I on?
Yeah. So Heal the Deal is actually the updated version of Spiritual Selling, which is coming out right before the event. It's going to come out. It's actually supposed to come out in May, but because of all this craziness, the publisher called me and he said, Joe, you can put it out in May, but I'm going to suggest you wait until everything calms down. So it's actually will be coming out in September. I'll have it for the event. And so as we were discussing it, and this is an interesting part of the conversation. So I had a new publisher for this book, and he said to me, Joe, he said, I know it's a title and you've done it and it's been relatively successful. That was 2007. He said, but people still have such a stigma attached to the word spiritual, which is hard for me to really comprehend in this day, but they still do. So he said, would you be open to a new title? And I said, well, I would be open to it, but it has to still have the vibe that I'm looking for. So we literally went back and forth for a couple of months, and we're talking one day, and he said, I said, well, they're making a deal, and whatever we were talking about, he said, how about Heal the Deal? And I said, that just sounds pretty good. So Heal the Deal was really designed to open this book up to more people who don't have the attachment to the word spiritual, and which I know I did at one point, that I thought it was more religious. But so he said, you're opening it up to a whole new market. So what I'm going to do in the Heal the Deal workshop is really go into more detail of how to do this in really first clear your energetic path, and then kind of meld together the processes that you want to use to make your whole system. You need to build your system. So you're kind of energetically getting aligned, and then you're kind of moving that right across into your business, into your process for sales and transactions, and then be able to move forward.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. The word, at least in this community, in your first book title was selling, is what I thought would that rubs certain people in this community the wrong way. But it's the community, except for a rare, fortunate few. Pretty much everyone else has to have a day job, and that's hopefully changing, where people can make this their full-time work. So this is really timely. So this is great. Is there anything else you want to add about the conference or your work or anything?
Well, I'm just really looking forward to connecting with people. You know, it's interesting because I go back and forth. So I have to, when I go in front of a business group, I have a certain adjustment to make because they're more on the business side. And when I get in front of a group like this, it's kind of a different adjustment to make because you're more already, you're kind of aware. So
Mhm.
it's always to me a lot of fun to kind of see the difference of the groups and kind of see the commonalities and also see the different approach, because the business people, of course, are kind of looking at this and say, well, does this really work? And the people in our side, in our camp, are like, oh, I got that, but I don't know how to do this part. So
Mhm.
it's a great way to kind of, I have so much fun with it because I kind of go back and forth all week with different clients at events. And when I was speaking at a lot of events before everything got shut down, but now everything is moved to virtual. So I just find it to be great fun. And my real mission is to help these people be successful, because we are here to help people. You have these people with amazing talents and skills. We want them to get out there and be successful so they can help more people. So that's really my mission, coming out there to Colorado in November. And now I'm in California, so I'm much closer. So I'm excited to go out there and do that and help everybody really expand it and get themselves to a full-time healer or working with constellations or whatever they can do to help the world become a better place.
Okay, sounds great. And you'll be most welcome in November, and I hope to see you there. So,
Looking forward to, yes, we will be live. Looking
yeah,
forward to that.
yeah, in the flesh. Okay,
Yeah.
Joe, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Jim. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to meeting you.
Okay.